In the annals of Silicon Valley, few stories are as captivating and cautionary as that of Theranos. Founded by the enigmatic Elizabeth Holmes, the company burst onto the scene promising a medical revolution: comprehensive blood tests from just a few drops, delivered affordably and quickly. It was a vision that resonated deeply, attracting unprecedented investment and ultimately valuing the startup at an eye-watering $9 billion. But beneath the veneer of innovation and the glow of its charismatic founder lay a foundation built on deceit, a technological mirage that would eventually shatter, exposing one of the most audacious frauds in modern corporate history. Elizabeth Holmes, a Stanford dropout, launched Theranos in 2003, initially aiming to democratize healthcare by making diagnostic testing accessible and affordable. Her vision was simple yet revolutionary: replace large, expensive lab equipment and painful venous draws with a sleek, automated device that could run hundreds of tests from a single finger prick of blood. She captivated investors and media alike with her deep voice, intense gaze, and a compelling narrative of personal conviction, pitching Theranos not just as a company, but as a mission to save lives. This potent combination fueled early enthusiasm and set the stage for rapid growth. At the heart of Theranos' groundbreaking claims was its proprietary device, dubbed Edison. Holmes asserted that this compact machine could perform a vast array of sophisticated blood tests using only a minuscule volume of blood, mere nanoliters, collected via a simple finger prick. This promised not only convenience but also unparalleled speed and accuracy, delivering results much faster than traditional labs. The concept was undeniably attractive, painting a picture of a future where health diagnostics were readily available at local pharmacies, empowering individuals with immediate access to crucial health information. It was the scientific marvel that everyone wanted to believe was possible. Theranos' initial fundraising efforts were incredibly successful, fueled by Holmes's persuasive narrative and the intoxicating promise of disrupting a multi-billion-dollar industry. Investors, often swayed by the charisma of a visionary founder and the fear of missing out on the next big thing in Silicon Valley, poured money into the company without sufficient due diligence. They saw a chance to revolutionize medicine, to be part of something truly transformative. This early belief, built more on hype than verifiable science, allowed Theranos to amass substantial capital, laying the groundwork for its meteoric rise and eventually its spectacular fall. The total funding reflected a deep trust in the audacious vision. By 2014, Theranos reached its zenith, achieving a staggering valuation of $9 billion. This placed it firmly in the Unicorn Club, a rare designation for private companies valued at over $1 billion. This valuation wasn't merely a number, it represented profound investor confidence, media adoration, and the perceived inevitability of Theranos' success. It was a testament to the power of a compelling story, coupled with a well-orchestrated public relations machine that carefully controlled the narrative. At this peak, Elizabeth Holmes was hailed as a genius, a visionary entrepreneur poised to redefine healthcare, gracing magazine covers and speaking at prestigious conferences, embodying the American dream of innovation. A critical component of Theranos' perceived legitimacy was its incredibly influential board of directors. This wasn't just any board, it was a roster of political heavyweights and business titans, including former Secretaries of State George Shultz and Henry Kissinger, and former Secretary of Defense James Mattis, alongside distinguished medical figures like Senator Bill Frist. These individuals, with their deep networks and sterling reputations, lent an air of unimpeachable credibility to the nascent startup. Their presence deterred rigorous scrutiny, as many assumed such accomplished individuals would only associate themselves with a truly revolutionary and legitimate enterprise. This impressive lineup inadvertently served as a shield against probing questions. The partnership with Walgreens marked a pivotal moment for Theranos, propelling it into the mainstream. The plan was audacious: establish Theranos wellness centers within Walgreens pharmacies across the country, allowing consumers to walk in, get a simple finger prick test, and receive rapid, affordable results. This deal, announced with much fanfare, promised unprecedented convenience for diagnostic testing, making it as easy as picking up a prescription. For Walgreens, it was an opportunity to revolutionize its health services. For Theranos, it was the validation needed to cement its position as a healthcare game-changer and justify its sky-high valuation, promising widespread adoption before the technology was truly ready. Beyond Walgreens, another significant endorsement came from Safeway, the supermarket giant. Safeway invested approximately $350 million into a multi-year deal with Theranos, planning to install clinics in more than 800 of its stores. This substantial investment further amplified Theranos' credibility and confirmed the widespread belief in its transformative potential. Safeway CEO Steve Bird was deeply impressed by Holmes and her vision, seeing Theranos as a way to enhance customer loyalty and expand health services. Yet, despite the massive outlay, the Safeway clinics never fully launched, crippled by the same underlying technological deficiencies that plagued Theranos' other ventures. This massive commitment highlighted the extent of investor belief. The stark reality behind Theranos' glossy facade was a profound disparity between its claims and actual capabilities. While Holmes publicly touted the Edison device's ability to run hundreds of tests from a finger prick, the truth was far more pedestrian and dangerous. Most tests were conducted on traditional, commercially available laboratory analyzers, often modified and used off-label or required standard venous blood draws, completely undermining the core premise. The Edison device itself was notoriously unreliable, plagued by high failure rates and accuracy issues. The breakthrough was an illusion, an elaborate smokescreen. Maintaining the Theranos illusion required a rigorous culture of secrecy and intimidation within the company. Employees were required to sign extensive non-disclosure agreements, and information was strictly siloed, preventing most from grasping the full extent of the technological failures. Those who dared to raise concerns internally were often met with threats, retaliation, or dismissal. Elizabeth Holmes and her COO, Ramesh Sunny Balwani, fostered an environment where critical thinking was suppressed and dissenting voices were silenced. This pervasive fear ensured that the company's scientific shortcomings remained hidden from investors, partners, and regulators for far longer than they should have. Despite the ironclad secrecy, cracks began to show. Courageous whistleblowers, including former employees Tyler Schultz, grandson of board member George Schultz, and Erica Chung, could no longer tolerate the ethical and scientific breaches. They meticulously documented the failures and dangers of Theranos technology, risking their careers and facing immense pressure from the company. Their testimonies, detailing compromised patient safety and fraudulent practices, would prove instrumental. These brave individuals eventually reached out to investigative journalists and regulatory bodies, providing the critical evidence needed to expose the truth and trigger a formal investigation into Theranos operations. The turning point arrived in October 2015, when Wall Street Journal reporter John Carreyrou published the first in a series of bombshell articles. Carreyrou, leveraging the accounts of whistleblowers and his own meticulous investigation, exposed the gaping chasm between Theranos' public claims and its operational reality. He revealed that the Edison device was largely non-functional and that the company was secretly using commercial machines for most of its tests. The articles sent shockwaves through Silicon Valley and the healthcare industry, immediately triggering a cascade of doubts, inquiries, and ultimately, regulatory action. Carreyrou's tenacious reporting effectively pulled back the curtain on the entire deception. In the wake of Carreyrou's exposé, regulatory bodies swiftly moved in. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, initiated investigations, finding that Theranos was using its proprietary nanotainer blood collection device without proper clearance. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, which regulates clinical labs, found severe deficiencies at Theranos' Newark, California lab, deeming its practices in immediate jeopardy to patient health and safety. These findings led to severe sanctions, including the revocation of the lab's license and a ban on Elizabeth Holmes and Sunny Balwani from owning or operating a clinical laboratory for 2 years. The net was tightening fast. The regulatory fallout from the CMS findings was direct and severe for Elizabeth Holmes. In a decisive move, the agency banned her from owning, operating, or directing a clinical laboratory for a period of 2 years. This wasn't merely a symbolic gesture, it was a professional death sentence in the healthcare diagnostics industry, stripping her of the ability to legally work in the field she claimed to revolutionize. The ban underscored the grave nature of the violations and the serious risk Theranos practices posed to public health. It marked a critical juncture, officially dismantling Holmes's direct operational control and signaling the impending collapse of the entire enterprise. With regulatory pressure mounting and the exposé's revelations reverberating, Theranos' carefully constructed empire rapidly disintegrated. Walgreens terminated its partnership in 2016, closing all Theranos wellness centers and demanding a refund. Safeway, having invested hundreds of millions, abandoned its plans. Investors, realizing the extent of the fraud, began to sue, and the company's once stratospheric $9 billion valuation evaporated. From a perceived medical titan, Theranos swiftly became a pariah, a textbook example of Silicon Valley's fake-it-till-you-make-it culture gone horribly wrong. The financial and reputational damage was catastrophic and irreversible. By 2018, with legal fees mounting and no viable technology or business model left, Theranos officially ceased operations. The company that had once promised to revolutionize healthcare concluded its dramatic journey not with a bang, but with a whimper, formally dissolving all assets. It was a stark conclusion to a saga that had captivated the world, leaving behind a trail of disillusioned investors, harmed patients, and a tarnished reputation for its founder. The dissolution served as a final, definitive admission that the groundbreaking technology Elizabeth Holmes had championed never truly existed, marking the definitive end of the Theranos era. The legal reckoning for Elizabeth Holmes was severe. In June 2018, a federal grand jury indicted her and former COO Sunny Balwani on 9 counts of wire fraud and 2 counts of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. The charges alleged that they engaged in a multi-year scheme to defraud investors by making false statements about Theranos technology, financial performance, and business prospects. Furthermore, they were accused of defrauding doctors and patients by misrepresenting the accuracy and reliability of Theranos blood tests. The indictments transformed the Theranos saga from a business failure into a criminal case, with significant implications for corporate accountability. After a lengthy trial that captured national attention, Elizabeth Holmes was found guilty in January 2022 on 4 counts of defrauding investors, 3 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. She was acquitted on charges relating to defrauding patients, highlighting the prosecution's focus on investor deception. In November 2022, Holmes was sentenced to 11.25 years in federal prison, marking a definitive end to her journey from celebrated CEO to convicted felon. Her case became a landmark for holding tech founders accountable for exaggerated claims and outright deception, setting a precedent for future startup accountability. Elizabeth Holmes was not alone in her deception. Ramesh Sunny Balwani, Theranos' former chief operating officer and Holmes' secret romantic partner, was also indicted and tried separately. Balwani, too, was convicted on all 12 counts of wire fraud and conspiracy to commit wire fraud related to defrauding both investors and patients. His involvement was central to the operation of the fraudulent scheme, particularly in managing the unreliable lab operations and finances. In December 2022, Balwani received an even longer sentence than Holmes, 12.9 years in prison. His conviction further solidified the legal ramifications for those complicit in the Theranos fraud. The spectacular implosion of Theranos serves as a profound cautionary tale for Silicon Valley and the wider business world. It highlights the dangers of unchecked hype, the critical importance of rigorous scientific and financial due diligence, and the ethical imperative of transparent governance, especially in industries that impact human health. The cult of the charismatic founder, combined with the fear of missing out, created a blind spot that allowed a fraudulent company to thrive for years. Theranos exposed how a high-profile board could fail in its oversight duties and underscored the invaluable role of investigative journalism and brave whistleblowers in uncovering corporate malfeasance. Theranos' legacy is undeniably tarnished, forever associated with one of the most significant startup frauds in history. Yet, its story also sparked crucial conversations about accountability in the tech world. It forced investors to reevaluate their founder-first investment philosophies and compelled regulatory bodies to increase scrutiny on private companies making grand claims. While a symbol of deceit, Theranos also inadvertently became a catalyst, pushing for more transparent scientific validation and more robust corporate governance within the startup ecosystem. Its downfall, while tragic for many, ultimately contributed to a more discerning and responsible approach to innovation, proving that even the most compelling narratives eventually face the harsh light of reality.